As a cinematographer and general lover of film, I watch a lot of movies. Usually just to kill time, but I've decided to be a lot more attentive and intentional with what I watch as a form of research and inspiration. I've made it a goal for myself to watch one movie a day, assuming I don't have a fully booked schedule. And since mid-March, I've been actively documenting my opinions and thoughts on each of these movies. And in this video, I'll be reviewing them. This was my first time watching a decent amount of these movies, and I might have some polarizing opinions, so please don't come for me. So here goes the movies I watched in March 2024. The Godfather. Starting off with a heavy hitter, Francis Ford Coppola's 1972 crime drama, which is widely regarded as one of the greatest movies of all time, kinda fell short for me. This was my first time watching the movie, and I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it, but it definitely didn't live up to the hype around it. I found the casting near perfect, and the set design was amazing, but the story and pacing is where I found most of my issues. It was way too long. I genuinely think at least 40 minutes of this movie could have been shaved off and the story would still be fully fleshed out. Every actor did an excellent job, but if I really needed to kill 3 hours watching a movie, I'd probably watch one of the Lord of the Rings movies or maybe Oppenheimer. I gave this movie an 8 out of 10. Please do not make me an offer I can't refuse to change my opinion. Thanks. That impression was terrible. Jeez. The Departed. It's 2006. It's Martin Scorsese. It's Boston. We've got action. We've got suspense, and an all-star cast with Jack Nicholson, Vera Farmiga, Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, the CEO of Boston himself, Mark Wahlberg. Not saying I'm a fan of this person or his actions, but he was kind of essential for this movie. The list goes on, but it would be an absolute understatement to say that I love this movie. It's a giant game of cat and mouse, trying to figure out who's ratting on who with so much tension that you can smell it. If you like crime movies or thrillers, this is a must-watch. 9 out of 10. The Shining. Directed by Stanley Kubrick, you know, the moon landing guy, and based off of a legendary Stephen King novel by the same name. This movie perfected the art of horror without the use of cheap jump scares. Watching Jack Nicholson's character become increasingly unhinged and seeing his wife and son have to face that actually gave me goosebumps. Cinematically, this movie was perfect. There's not a single scene I can think of where I could have seen it being shot differently. Amazing casting, the location is godly. This is now one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a 9.5 out of 10. Maybe a 10, it's really close. It's really close. The Hateful Eight. There's just something about Tarantino movies. Crude language and disturbing violence aside, this movie has a really good plot and a twist that I genuinely didn't expect. Shot almost exclusively in one location, this movie really shows that story is everything. I have never seen Samuel Jackson give a non-iconic performance, and this movie is definitely no exception to that. Every actor in this film absolutely nailed their character, and the set direction is immaculate, of course. Who doesn't love a Western action movie? I give this one an 8.5 out of 10. You should watch it. Nocturnal Animals. Directed by Tom Ford and starring Amy Adams and Jake Gyllenhaal. This movie is about a wealthy woman who left her partner years ago, mostly due to family pressure because his writing career wasn't really going anywhere. Years later, he sends her a proof of his book that she reads every day and gets fully lost in the story. We, the viewer, get to see a combination of her real life and a dramatization of the book, which I would have loved to see more of as that story was quite gripping. She realizes that he is who she's loved all along and tries to meet up with him to no avail. I think I was as lost in the novel as Amy Adams' character was, and I found this movie to be an amazing modern take on the noir type film. I give it an 8.5. It's pretty good. Pulp Fiction. Back again with Tarantino. This 90s classic crime thriller shows vignettes in the life of two hitmen, Jules and Vincent, showing different aspects of their lives and even a spiritual journey for one of them. The first time I watched this movie I was 14 and possibly not sober, so this was like a first watch for me, and I was hooked. Every subplot of this movie was strong enough to be its own project. An A-list cast for the time, amazing plot points, character development, and excellent camera work. Not a single complaint from me. I'm actually working on a music video right now heavily inspired by this film. This is going to be our first 10. I think this film's perfect. Please don't kill me. Catch me if you can. Alright, imagine a movie where there's a literal miner scamming millions of dollars to live a life of grandeur, and you're rooting for them over law enforcement. I'll be honest, I wouldn't be imagining if that was happening right now, but don't tell the feds that. This Steven Spielberg movie, which is based on a true story by the way, shows a cat and mouse game between the scammer of the century and the FBI. I was pleasantly surprised with how good this movie is, and I'll probably be watching it again in the near future. It's a 9 out of 10. Brothers. This movie tells a pretty simple, likely common story about the lives of a military family dealing with PTSD. We have Tobey Maguire giving likely the performance of his life. Definitely the best one I've ever seen from him. As a soldier who was presumed dead in Afghanistan, but later found to be alive. Honestly, he should be dead, but he did some unthinkable things to stay alive just so he could see his family again. When he gets back, he starts dealing with the after effects of war, and also believes his brother is sleeping with his wife. Yikes. Although I think this movie is a good representation of the mental effects of war, it isn't exactly a great film, but it is above average. 7 out of 10. Roadhouse. When I watched this movie, I didn't realize it was a remake, since the first one came out before I was born and isn't exactly notable. And I'm glad I watched this as a standalone film. Starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor as his opposite, we see the protagonist take a job as a bouncer at a pub, who then finds out he's against a corporate mafia. Story-wise, it's pretty simple. The visual effects seemed pretty low budget, but the acting was great, even from the Notorious himself. Probably won't watch it again, but it was a decent action movie. 7 out of 10. Taxi Driver. I'm pretty sure this is my first time seeing a young Robert De Niro in a movie, so that was cool. He plays Travis Bickle, a lonely little guy with insomnia, just like me for real, who starts driving taxis in New York City. This movie is all about him seeing the downfall of society in his perspective, and him getting lost in the sauce in delusion. Not gonna spoil it, but he goes off at the end and decides he's the hero the city needs. Now that I think about it, this is basically the 70s version of The Joker. I really like this movie, and I can see how it's influential within the genre and even outside the genre. I'll definitely be watching this iconic movie again. 8 out of 10. Shutter Island. Alright, imagine you're given the job to investigate an island with a mental institution, only to find out you're actually a patient there. Without giving out too much details, this is exactly what happens to Leonardo DiCaprio's character in this Scorsese film. I've watched several video essays about Shutter Island, and even I was thrown for a loop. It isn't until the very end of the movie that you understand the truth within this twisting plot. Honestly, this movie is the epitome of mystery thriller. I'd give it a 9 out of 10. You should watch it. Skyfall. It's a Bond movie. I love spy films and thrillers, and yes, this is a good movie, but it's not one of my favorites of the genre. We have Agent 007, who's presumed dead, but returns when MI6 is under attack, and to be honest, he's kinda washed. I was, however, a huge fan of Javier Bardem's character, as he really knows how to play a villain, and if you like Bond movies, you'd probably enjoy this one. I give it a 7.5. The Beekeper, a Jason Statham action movie. I could stop there, but I think what really made this a standout was the cinematography. Gabriel Beristain did an amazing job with the lighting and framing of this movie, to the point where I found the one-man army ridiculous fight scenes actually pretty enjoyable. I'd recommend this if you like actions or thrillers and want to see some really good camera work. 7 out of 10. And lastly, Justice League. Now, I'm not gonna trash this movie and bury it like everyone else, but I will honestly say that I fell asleep watching it. Good casting, and the visual effects were solid, but as a lover of superhero movies, I just expected more. Hashtag bring back Green Lantern, please. Watch this if you want, I guess. It's a 4 out of 10. So that's all the movies I watched in March, or at least all the movies I wrote down my thoughts on. Let me know what you think about this longer form content, and I would love to hear your opinions on these movies as well. If you think I'm dead wrong on any of these, let's start a dialogue. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I wish you well. Thanks for watching. Bye now. Fuck thumbnails.